Good morning, guys, and I can actually say that today because it is only 10 something right now, so it is morning. My plans for today, I was gonna play a scary game called The Forest, but it didn't. For some reason, Steam was having an issue, and I kept hitting retry, 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 and it kept saying something. I don't remember what it said, but it's having problems connecting to the server or some shit. So instead, we're gonna do something quite lame. We're gonna read. I know, lame, but I figured I would just, scroll through some of these stories on the Reddit NoSleep, maybe read a few, see if, because I know a lot of them are horror fiction, but some people think some of it's real, so I guess we'll find out for ourselves and try and decide that today. So, here we are. We are on the subreddit NoSleep. Um, Apparently they had a contest or something going down. Um, so let's see. Something really weird going on with the girl on my dorm floor. Alright, so there's something really weird going on with the girl on my dorm floor. I didn't really know where to go with this story, considering most of my friends are the type that don't believe in ghosts or evil demons or anything like that. I'm just feeling a little scared and helpless at this point, and I know if I tell my parents, they'll totally freak out and demand I come home, and then I'll be kinda screwed. My university has kind of a high dropout rate. My roommate, my first semester of college, ended up dropping out because she couldn't deal with the anxiety and her depression, but she's doing much better now. And my second roommate was an international student who ended up running out of money halfway through the semester and had to drop out. The rooms are set up with two bedrooms and one bathroom connecting them, with two people in either room. There's 8 rooms on my floor, all connected by a big common room in the center of us. Then there's a hallway, and then on the other side of the hallway is another pod like ours. The pods are separated by gender, so all the rooms surrounding mine have girls in them. Most of the girls I have met have been super sweet. I'm ridiculously lucky to call one of them one of my closest friends. Her name is Anne, but we don't share a room or a bathroom or anything. She lives across the pod. The girls I share the bathroom with are named Katie and Ashley, but Ashley moved out a week ago after she finished finals. A few of us still have finals to get through, so we're in the dorm still. Katie's still in her room, at least I think she is. I've heard someone using the bathroom and showering and stuff, just assuming it's her and not a ghost. There's only 4 of us left in our pod. Me, Katie, Anne, and Julie, who I've met a couple of times but never really talked to. Julie's a little weird. I think her major is hospitality, but she's not really that hospitable. Whenever I see her, she kind of stretches her lips into a long, thin smile. She never stops to talk. One time on campus, when I saw her walking towards me and offered up a, "Hey Julie, how's classes?" But she kept walking, didn't even look at me, really, just stretched her lips into one of those long, thin smiles. Anne and I were hanging out in the pod last night, studying for our chemistry final. The pod has a couple tables and a couch so people can hang out and chill between classes, or if their roommate is asleep and they want to study. The ceiling lights never turn off. Ever. They're super bright too. It's kind of nice. Comforting, in a way. Especially since my room is half empty with my roommate gone. I can look at the door at night and see the glow of the pod lights through the crack under the door, and know that if something scares me in the dark, the light is only 3 really big steps away. But last night, the lights flickered. Anne and I were balancing an equation together, and the lights flickered. Not just one of them, either. All of them, at exactly the same time. We glanced at each other. Maintenance is usually on top of their shit, and things like that don't happen. Elevators don't break, showers don't break, lights do not go out. The light suddenly started dimming, as if They had one of those sliding dimming light switches instead of the flick ones. The lights just slowly got dimmer and dimmer. Ann and I didn't even have to say anything to each other. I was so fucking weird and weird. It was so fucking weird and creepy that we just grabbed our stuff and bolted for the door. She was putting her key into the lock when Julie's door opened. The lights were almost off in the pod, but across the room we could see Julie's figure standing in the doorway. All the lights in her room were off. She was just standing there. I could see her face, the thin-lipped smile. Fuck, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It was so bizarre. I bolted for the light switches, and Anne slammed her bedroom door and locked it. I turned on every light I could. I slept on Anne's roommate's plastic mattress that night. I couldn't go back out there with all the lights off. This morning, when we woke up, the lights were back on in the common room. I went back to my bedroom, showered, and changed. Anne and I went to class together. I tried to talk about it with her on the way to class, but when I brought it up, she looked at me really confused, like she didn't know what I was talking about. Anne is ridiculously sweet. She doesn't pull pranks on tricks on people. So when I said, "What do you think happened last night?" and she replies, "What do you mean?" I knew something was super wrong. For a second, I figured I had just dreamed the whole thing, but I slept over in her room. Why would I have slept over on her roommate's really uncomfortable, crinkly plastic mattress if nothing had happened? "In the pod last night, when the lights went off," I replied, watching her face for any sign of sudden realization of understanding. Anne stopped walking. "The lights didn't go off. We finished studying and went to bed," she replied carefully, watching my face as closely as I watched hers. "I slept over in your room," I replied. She shook her head. "No, my room was empty last night." "Anne, when Julie?" We stared at each other, and Anne blinked at me a few times. Then she asked, "Who's Julie?" I sort of just dropped it because we got to class, and it was a really important review for our exam. We're both moving out on Saturday, so I'm hoping that I can make it to then without any weird dreams, I guess. Because it was just a dream, right? If Anne doesn't remember it. But she knows Julie. Julie's real. Julie exists. She was always at our meetings with our RA, and she went to on-campus activities sometimes. I saw her walking around, existing. Any advice on what to do here would surely be super appreciated, or at least some comforting words if you have any. Well, with this story, I feel like she's fucking, maybe she's got some kind of mental issues and she sees things happening like schizophrenia or some shit. I don't know. That one could be a true story because, I mean, it really isn't that no sleepy, you know? Something wicked. Flannery O'Connor once said that the South is Christ haunted. Lord, how I wish that weren't true. Whether or not you believe in him is one matter. His presence is another thing entirely. I don't believe in God, but I can sure feel him everywhere I go. My mama was a devout Catholic, went to church every Sunday, sometimes Wednesdays. She volunteered for Bible study. I was 16 when she got pregnant. She claimed God had gifted her, a woman far past her prime, with a holy miracle. Wait, what? She was 16. How is that far past her prime? What the fuck? Daddy didn't say much about this, just smiled wryly and accepted the handshakes and congratulations. Mama was as big as a planet, round and distended, her swollen belly tenting her sagging linen dress. It was summer, hot and heavy, when she finally went into labor. Oh, okay, so she's pregnant again. When she finally went into labor, I sat in the backyard reading Hemingway, swatting mosquitoes, when I heard her screaming from the house. She had her baby in the bedroom at 11:32 a.m., staining the frayed sheets with blood and birth fluids. I cradled the fuzzy, wrinkled infant in a towel as Mama named it after her great aunt, clutched her rosary to her chest. lips moving feverishly in silent prayer. Daddy came home from the auto shop later that night, smelling like cigars and grease, and held his daughter with the worship I had only seen before in church. Marceline Grace Covey was a pretty name, if there ever was one. Within a month, her hair was fine and gold thread in the sunlight, just like Mama's. Tiny hands, chubby wrists, grabbed soft at offered gifts, with pale fingernails like half-moon petals. Mama took her to church every Sunday, where she would sit quietly in the pews, only making happy gurgling noises when she deemed the timing was appropriate. She never cried, never fussed, always had a pleasant little pucker on her lips. We patted her head, called her Marcy. The priest who baptized her cupped her rosy cheeks and proclaimed her a miracle from God, a little angel to walk among us. He smeared a cross in stinking oil across her forehead, where it glistened until it started congealing. Mama dressed her in jumpers with inexpensive lacy sleeves. Daddy pushed her stroller around the neighborhood when the weather wasn't too bad. I stayed at home and read, or wandered the back roads when I got too restless. It was around this time that I met Aberdeen Lamotte. Aberdeen lived half a mile down the road. Her rundown house was set far back in a cloudy field, scraggly grass dotted with hens and locusts. In the far corner of the lot was a faded barn, buckling under decades of rain and heat. Kids used to whisper in the dusty safety of hot August softball fields, claiming that Aberdeen was a witch, that she kept her victims strung up in that old barn silo. As Mama and Daddy rolled Marcy down the macadam in her wobbly little carriage, I would tiptoe into Aberdeen's yard and creep through the grass, twisting my ankles in pits and tripping over clods of dirt to sit in the sticky shadow of the barn. The shed, of course, was empty. No bodies in sight. But I still went to great lengths to avoid Aberdeen as I napped or read in the shade. I was half afraid she would steal me away, cook me into stew if she caught me wandering around her property. As the summer grew hotter, I spent more time sweating in the peace of the barn. It was one of these afternoons when Aberdeen emerged from her crooked little house in a swirl of silk and coca skin, bearing 2 glasses of sweet tea and a plate of coconut macaroons. She, of course, had always known when I'd been around, but she had grown to like the indirect companionship and felt no reason to stop me from visiting. We sat together on an increasingly regular basis, the colorful fabric of her muumuu fluttering in the humid breeze. Aberdeen was a self-proclaimed Vaudoon queen, her walls lined with salts, charms, and half-made grease. Sometimes she would brew herbs in a flaking pot on her kitchen stove, and the whole house would smell like jimson weed and honey for days. She would tell me stories she stirred away with a warped wooden spoon, beads of sweat rolling down her temples like pearls on velvet. I listened to tales about her ancestors practicing voodoo in the dirty slave barracks of plantations, and how half a Louisiana Creole must have learned to make wanga from her great-great-grandmama. She didn't teach me any of her rituals, and I didn't ask to learn them. I was happy being a spectator. I liked Aberdeen's kitchen, even if the constant heat of the stove sometimes made it hotter inside than it was outside. God, did I love Aberdeen! She was the opposite of my own mama. There were rumors that Aberdeen could never step foot in a church, lest the devil take her soul. Yet I looked upon her as a mother all the same. Aberdeen never told me her age. She didn't look more than 30, but whenever I estimated, she would just laugh, a throaty sound low in her chest, and tell me that I was a terrible guesser. As summer wore to a hot, sticky close, Mama started to notice my absence from home and pulled me back into the familiar rut of prayer meetings and stale orange juice. No one in the South made a whole lot of money after the economy started pushing daisies, but we got by all right. Daddy began working night shifts at the garage. As summer faded to autumn, Mama took in other people's clothes to mend, raking in a couple dollars a night with her little seamstress shop running out of our living room. Marcy had just passed the 3-month mark when school started up. All of a sudden, I was jammed in a building with 118 other teenagers that emerged from the shadows of the farms, smelling like livestock and dirt, and the days passed in a blur of defaced desks and body odor. I arrived home every day, 3:12 p.m. sharp, after walking the mile or so from school. Mama was always sitting on the front of the decrepit old TV with a gossip show chattering on her, or a priest shouting hallelujahs to a cheering studio audience as she hammered away at the sewing machine. Marcy would be sitting on her lap and shaking a rubber rattle. Daddy was normally asleep on the couch, resting up for his next shift at the auto shop. Fall and winter progressed uneventfully, the passage in time marked only by the slow, shrinking drops of mercury in the battered, fractured thermostat. Temperatures once dropped to a mild 40 degrees, and Marcy was bundled around in her flannel jumpsuit for a whole month of January. My birthday came and went on February 2nd. Mama didn't bring it up, so neither did I. We wouldn't have been able to afford a celebration anyhow. I passed my midterms with decent grades. Daddy gave me a pat on the head and hung my report card on the refrigerator. Dangled there, dusty, disintegrating until April, when it was thrown away to make room for the crayon scribbles Marcy did on the back of some unpaid bills. As summer crept closer, I began wandering off to Aberdeen's again, seeking refuge from the sun and the perpetual smell of my daddy's cigarettes. In May, school ended. Aberdeen set up a cot in the kitchen corner where I napped when the heat made me drowsy. As Marcy's birthday grew closer, the air got hotter. My mother's religious fervor reached its peak. "Lenora May," she would call over the clamor of church bells and sewing needles, "did you say your prayers yet today?" I always reassured her that, yes, I had, even if it wasn't always true. Prayer was never as significant to me as it was to most sinners in the South. I was more interested in watching the world go by, reflecting in the cracked lens of Daddy's old reading glasses. I always thought it was such a poetic thing, a distorted image of a bird in flight, set to a cicada-like litany of "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." On June 21st, Marcy became 1 year old. Mama made a yellow cake from a Betty Crocker box, and mixed cherry Kool-Aid in a plastic pitcher. All four of us sat on a ratty blanket in the backyard, slapping mosquitoes, staining the grass scarlet when our cups tipped over. That night, Marcy was making little sleeping baby noises from her crib in Mama and Daddy's room, and I tried to tune out the sound of bad quality game shows. Eventually, though, there was the soft sound of aging bodies settling down for the night, and all became quiet. I heard Mama get out of bed, drawing her silky robe around her thinning body to check on Marcy. I couldn't make out the distinct puckered sound of thin lips pressing a kiss to a round cheek. Wait, I could make out the distinct puckered sound of lips pressing a kiss to a round cheek. Then Mama crawled back in bed with the muffled rustle of stirring sheets. I pulled the comforter over my head, rolled over, slept. The next morning I awoke to the scream of, "That is not my baby!" And I lay shaking in my bed as Daddy tried to soothe Mama with quiet, hush-hush noises. I crept across the hallway, and Daddy was clutching Mama in his arms, crushing her to his chest, as she wailed and screamed and tugged his nightshirt till it tore. Tears streamed down her withering cheek, and I choked back a tide of nausea. Marcy laid peacefully in her crib, tiny baby hands reaching up and making grabby motions at the water-stained ceiling. I looked down at the little thing. It looked like Marcy. I picked it up, settled it against my shoulder, and cooed in my ear. Its Roman fingers tangled in the long brown hair I had neglected to brush. The weight of its body was familiar in my arms, but the scent of mud and swamp grass was not. I held Marcy up, away from my body, and had a good once-over. Same thread-fine hair, same brown arms and plump ankles. The eyes, though, the eyes were wrong. They looked bright as always, but they held too many years, too much contempt for such an infantile face. As I shifted towards the window to see in better light, a flash of dark, mossy green cut through the blue like a snake in water, soft and sinister in a place it didn't belong. I placed the thing back in the crib, revulsion tying up my guts and making the blood rush in my ears. "It's okay, Mama," I said. "It's Marcy. It's fine." No way did I believe my own words, but I was afraid. Of Mama, of the baby, maybe of both. I didn't want to dwell on it. I was better off hiding under the blankets from things that go bump in the night. Maybe it was just growing up thing. Maybe Marcy would have green eyes like Daddy and I when she was older, not blue like Mama's. But I was imagining it. Mama broke free of Daddy and loomed over the crib, her blonde hair hanging like a stringy curtain. "Where is my baby?" she asked, voice like a fever drum of thunder. Terror worming in my insides and stomach crawling up my throat. I left. Aberdeen seemed to be expecting me when I arrived. She was already dressed. A plate of tea cakes on the table, and the kettle whistling over the puttering flame of the derelict gas stove. She let me in without a word, fingering the wooden beads that circled snare-like around her throat. She asked what the matter was, and I only told her Mama thinks Marcy's been replaced before she hurried to change the conversation, leaving me sitting on the counter with a mug of steaming tea and the taste of fear in my mouth like old pennies. I passed the day at Aberdeen's, grinding salts with a mortar, pestle, when I couldn't stop my hands from shaking, and laying restless on my cot when the heat was too much to bear. Radishes and onions hung like bloated planets over my head, nebulous in their woven netting. Aberdeen gave me an herbal mix she swore would cure anything, and bowl of succotash to wash out the taste of sulphur and nettles. At her insistent urging, I left for home, and as the sun started its downward slope across the afternoon sky, the clouds were bruising pink with dust when I was greeted at home by the county sheriff's car and Daddy's quivering hands. Mama had snapped. Daddy thought he had convinced her that everything was okay, that nothing was wrong with Marcy. So he was perfectly happy when Mama said she was going to church to do some praying and some thinking. He sat, waited at home, football game on the television rumbling in the background as he dozed on the couch. When he woke up at lunchtime and Mama had yet to come home, he headed down to the chapel to get her himself. He was met by the priest and the police. Mama had put her baby face down in the holy water to drown and was dangling from the rafters in the afternoon sun, rays of dusty light illuminating her hair where it fell soft across the noose. Marcy was gurgling happily, hair slick and eyelashes sparkling with heavy drops of blessed dew, as she splashed her little fists in the baptismal fountain. I don't believe in Christ, but I could feel his heavy eyes haunting me as Marcy dozed, damp and forward in my aching, trembly arms. Well, that was actually a pretty good one. I mean, what's next, guys? Let's see here. Someone is calling my name. Ooh, This sounds like a good one. Someone is calling my name. I'm a camp counselor. I started the summer before my junior year and have been hooked ever since. I jumped around from camp to camp over the years, but this is most likely my last summer as a counselor, so I've decided to make it a special one. I've stuck to camps around the New Jersey area, but since I wanted this summer to make it a special one, I've stuck to camps around. Wait, so oh god damn it! I'm starting over, guys. I'm a camp counselor. I started the summer before my junior year and have been hooked ever since. I've jumped around from camp to camp over the years, but this is most likely my last summer as a counselor, so I've decided to make it a special one. I've stuck to camps around New Jersey area, but since I wanted this summer to be special, I decided to fly across the country to a camp in Montana. It was smaller than most, but the counselor to camper ratio was also smaller, which I loved since it would mean I could get to know my campers better. The campers aren't arriving until mid-May, but the training started a week ago. Since arriving, I'm not sure if I want to continue working here for the rest of the summer. Everything about the camp is really great. Mary is a summer camp coordinator, and she's been such a pleasure so far. Most of the time, the camp coordinator is a hard ass who wants to beat the fun out of being a camp counselor. Mary, however, has already shown that she is not like that. Part of the staff bonding was a bonfire party at a clearing in the woods. Some of the returning staff had brought alcohol and weed, which was shared with the whole staff. When Mary returned, the new staff tried to hide their drinks, but Mary revealed she had brought a cooler full of beer and encouraged the staff to relax. This party was about 3 days into our training, and although I didn't like drinking that much, I decided to have a beer or two. At some point, I realized a lot of the staff had gone to their tents. At this point, it was only Mary, myself, and 2 others. We talked about the bonfire for a while, and I learned that the other 2's names were Callie and Sam. They had been working at this camp for 4 years and began dating the first year here. We were all just talking and passing around a joint when Callie and asked Mary if last summer's pests were taken care of. Sam snapped at Callie that she shouldn't scare the newbie, but Mary just sighed and said she hadn't seen anything since October. I assumed they were talking about a coyote or a bear, and shook it off. The 3 of them went back to talking about the newbie counselor and who they thought would hook up with who before the end of the summer. It was like every other camp I'd been to. Counselors drink and party when the kids are asleep. I went to bed thinking I should become better friends with Callie. I kept getting the feeling, though, that I should ask more about what animal they were talking about so that I could be prepared to protect my campers. I've always been a morning person, so I woke up before the other counselors, started to the campfire, where I saw that Callie was already awake. I thought this was the perfect time to ask what she was talking about before. When I asked, though, she got quite nervous before pulling me close and telling me I should be careful while walking through the woods. She explained that when Mary first came to the camp, she renamed the camp so that the all record of the 3 campers who went missing in the woods was not connected to her camp. Apparently, in 1991, a young boy named Henry went missing and was never found. The same event occurred in 2003 with a boy named James. Then again in 2011 with a girl named Talia. Since then, counselors have reported seeing a boy with a tall woman. Callie said that it's become a bit of an urban legend with the campers, who say the woman is here to steal away bad children. However, things came to a boiling point last year when Callie almost quit after seeing the woman and little girl herself. What? That says what? Seeing a boy with a tall woman. Seeing the woman and the little girl herself. I already found a flaw in your story, person. Callie said she was walking to clear her mind one night and saw 2 figures at the edge of the wood. When she saw the woman, she didn't freak out at first because she looked so familiar. Callie swore to me it looked like her mother, and she was drawn to the edge of the woods where her mother waited with an outstretched hand. It was only once Callie realized the little girl was shaking her head and mouthing "No" with a smile that seemed forced. She didn't. She forced did she realize it made no sense for her mother to be in these woods. Something suddenly snapped in Callie's head, and she ran as fast as she could back to her cabin. Callie said the whole time she was running, she heard a small girl screaming and howling, and a sound getting closer and closer to her. I didn't really believe Callie at first. She told me to keep it a secret from Mary that she told me. I figured she was honestly just trying to play a prank on a new counselor. However, I did make a mental note to be careful when walking at night. That brings me to tonight. The cabin I'm sitting in has mesh windows that wrap around the whole cabin. I swear I heard someone say my name outside on the porch. There's no lock on the door. I'm just trying to figure out what I should do. I feel strangely drawn to leave the cabin, but after what Callie told me, I really shouldn't. There's only one other person in the cabin, and their bunk is across the cabin, and I would have to cross right by the door to go to her, which I feel like is just a bad idea. Every hair on my body is standing up straight. The brightness on my phone is as low as it can be, and I'm hiding under a blanket on the top bunk. I'm typing this to try to calm myself down so that I can find some reasonable explanation. I should have paid more attention to Callie. I just heard my name again. I swear, it sounds like my sister. Alright guys, well I'm going to call that good. Reading makes me tired. I started getting really tired and then the words started blending together. Thank you all. I don't know what I'm doing today. So I hope you all have a good day. And please like and subscribe. I'm going to try and get that game downloaded so that I can do some fun, scary game shit. Yeah, but anyways, I hope you have a good day. Please like and subscribe for more content.